Welcome, everyone. I'd now like to introduce our special guests, Mike Armstrong and Hugh Simpson.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Armstrong, the Chief Executive Officer at NCARB, and we're coming to you from our offices in Washington, D.C. So good afternoon to our American viewers and good evening to our UK viewers. With me today is my colleague, the CEO of the Architects Registration Board in the United Kingdom. I'd like to introduce to you Hugh Simpson.
Thanks, Mike. So yeah, I'm Hugh Simpson. I'm the Chief Executive and Registrar at the Architects Registration Board. It's a pretty exciting time, and it's amazing to be in Washington, D.C. To mark this really important moment in our organization's history, but obviously something more important, which is about the mutual recognition of qualifications across our two countries. Perhaps I might just start briefly by talking a little bit about our organisation for American friends. So the Architects Registration Board is a statutory regulator. It means we're set up by the UK Parliament, and we have a number of sort of core functions. So we quality assure the initial education and training of architects in the United Kingdom. We also establish registration requirements. We publish a code of conduct, and we have a disciplinary function. So those are broadly the sort of four functions we have. I think what we're celebrating and talking about today is the signing of a mutual recognition agreement back in February. And what we've done really is establish a series of core principles about how we can facilitate the movement of architects between our two countries. And obviously part of the Q&A later, we'll go through some of the details about what's involved. But we think, and we're really excited about a new way of doing this, about a more proportionate approach, which at the same time upholds confidence in from the public and the quality of the architects and the standards that we uphold. So everyone who is practicing in the UK and in the United States under an MRA, the public can have confidence in their qualifications. Well, again, we can talk a little bit more in the Q&A around eligibility, but from our perspective, what we are looking to do is to make sure that we've broadly assessed equivalence. And I think what we've managed to do with this agreement is to do that, so that we've reduced the bureaucracy that is associated with registering in different countries. And so there's a real step forward. So from our perspective, the UK architects wishing to work in America will need to have had what we refer to as a Part 1, a Part 2, and a Part 3 qualification. So that's an undergraduate, a master's, and a diploma. And I think what we've managed to do is a really positive step forward. So no doubt we'll come into some of the details in the Q&A, but exciting to be here in Washington, D.C., and it's great to be able to promote the MRA, which will officially launch at the end of the month. Mike.
Thanks, Hugh. We have indeed been working on this agreement for about 5 years. Once the United Kingdom departed from the European Union, it opened up a new opportunity for us to have a direct conversation with the UK. And we did engage in a process of assessing similarities and differences between our two licensure paths. The description I've been giving it is that rather than looking at it at a macro level, looking at it instead in a molecular level, what are the sub-elements of each of our steps toward licensure in each country that are actually very similar? And in making this determination of substantial equivalency, we were then able to negotiate an agreement. On the US side, what this means is that if you're a US architect holding an NCARB certificate and have graduated from a NAB accredited program, then you merely need to initiate with us a request for a transmittal to the United Kingdom. And then at that point, the ARB will take it over and work with you to complete your application to receive a license to practice architecture in the UK. Yesterday, we did a outreach meeting with representatives from the professional societies, the Royal Institute of British Architects and the American Institute of Architects, talking about the value to the profession. And the idea that being that between our two countries, we have so much to learn from each other and to collectively present to the global community regarding the most critical issues facing architecture in the built environment, ranging from climate to disparate treatment of different groups within our society, to how the architect vision and approach can be part of the solutioning that we need today around our planet. And we think that together we can demonstrate that with rigor, we can accomplish great things together. We've very much enjoyed the collaboration with the UK colleagues, and we're excited for this webinar to explain more how this will work. And we will be recording this webinar so that it will be rebroadcast and accessible to everybody who wasn't able to listen today or who is interested in following up. So with that, I think we're ready to toss this over to our moderator, Patricia Ramallo, who will be coordinating the webinar and the Q&A sessions. So we'll hand it over to Patricia and the panel inside the studio.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Hugh, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Patricia Ramallo. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Innovation here at NCARB, and I'm also part of the international team. So today I'm joined by experts of both the organizations, ARB and NCARB, to discuss implementation and some of the details of the mutual recognition agreement between the two organizations that is going to allow US architects to get registered in the UK and UK architects to get licensed in one of the 55 jurisdictions of the US. So we'll start by giving a brief overview of the requirements and implementation plan, and then we'll jump into taking your questions. So to submit your questions, important, please use the Q&A tool and you can submit your questions anytime. So now let's start with some introductions. First, Emma, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. Hi, I'm Emma Matthews. I'm the Director of Governance and International at the Architects Registration Board and have been working on the MRA for the last 5 years.
Rob, would you like to go next?
Hello, I'm Rob Wilson. I'm International Manager here at ARB. I've been working alongside Emma on the MRA for a number of years also. Thanks, Patricia.
Great. I'm Harry Falconer, Vice President for Experience and Education here at NCARB, and also lead our international relations and our team here with us today. And let's jump into this, I think.
Yes, let's go right away if you want to start sharing some details.
Great. We know that many people have been interested in the actual details, so this is probably the first time we've ever shared them in this level with all of you today. So we're excited to have you here. So you're ready to apply and you're ready to use the MRA. What do you need to do? The first thing that you actually need for anybody, whether you're actually coming to the US from the UK or whether you're going from the US to the UK, there are 3 eligibility requirements that you really do need to understand first. First, you must have lawful authorization to work in the locality in which you are seeking licensure or registration. I will stop very quickly for everyone on the call and say we are going to use licensure and or registration interchangeably. Here in the US, we refer to it as licensure, and with the ARB, you refer to it as registration. So again, you must have lawful authorization to work in the locality that you are planning to seek your registration or licensure. You will also have to have proof of a current and valid license or registration in good standing, whether that be from one of the local US jurisdictions, our states or territories, or from the ARB. Finally, if you have questions about this, this is not an eligibility, but this is when you're not eligible. Basically, anyone who is licensed or registered by means of programs recognizing credentials, that is, but from a foreign country or a foreign reciprocal registration or license agreement that we have or that the ARB has with other entities, you are not eligible. Okay, so this is one that you are not eligible if you come through a foreign path here in the US or in the ARB or through one of our other foreign reciprocal registration agreements. Now, I think one of the first things we all need to do, and this actually works for whether you're coming from the UK to the US or the US to the UK. Basically, I really encourage everyone to go online to NCARB.org. On our homepage, you can scroll down and you'll see a big map, which is our registration board requirements. We really suggest you look at this first, and you'll notice it's under reciprocal registration. So you already have to have a license, so this is considered reciprocal registration on our website. You want to make sure that you come to the site and you scroll down to where it says NCARB will accept, or NCARB certification granted through this MRA will be accepted. You see here, this is the most current up-to-date map as of today. You will see all the states that are NCARB blue. They actually accept and will accept either transmittal 2 their state for mutual recognition through the MRA, and or we can transmit you. If you're licensed in one of these states or jurisdictions, we can also transmit you to the ARB for reciprocal registration there. So the first point of check to make sure you're eligible. Okay, we're going to go through now each path a little bit more in detail. So we're going to start right now with us at NCARB. So if you're a U.S. architect registered in one of our U.S. jurisdictions and you're interested in transmitting to the ARB to become a UK architect, this is your path. We want to start with the basics. So the basics are, and to reiterate what Mike Armstrong just mentioned, and to emphasize it again, you must have graduated with a degree from a program accredited by the National Architectural Accrediting Board, or NAB. You must have completed our Architectural Experience Program, or AXP. You will have had to have completed the ARE, or the Architect Registration Examination, and you have an active license in good standing. Okay. Once you have achieved that, many of you already have done this, but you have achieved and you've gotten the NCARB certification. So this is the vehicle for transmitting at this point. It is the NCARB certificate. So once you've achieved an NCARB certificate through this path, you're eligible on the basics to go through the MRA process. Now, transmitting from NCARB to ARB. So you have your NCARB certificate, you're ready to transmit. First thing you want to make sure is that your NCARB certificate is up to date. That means all the information in there, fees, et cetera, are all up to date. You will contact NCARB to notify us of your intent to transmit for ARB to the ARB for registration in the UK. There is a transmittal fee. Once that has all been satisfied, NCARB will transmit your NCARB certificate to ARB. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Emma, and you can explain what happens once you get the transmittal from us.
Thanks, Harry. Yes, so once we receive the NCARB certificate, we will make contact with the US applicant. So ARB will get in touch with you direct. And at that point, we will set out the next steps of the process that you need to go through to get registered in the UK. That involves and includes undertaking our UK adaptation assessment. And just to explain that a little bit more, that will involve you submitting a reflective career summary for which we will provide a template and guidance on how to complete it. We will also provide you with some UK scenarios and some questions to help you prepare for the professional interview. We will liaise with you throughout to set up the professional interview, and once you've successfully concluded the professional interview, then you will be eligible to register with us. So we will get in touch with you, we will explain the next steps, provide all this documentation, and really the UK adaptation assessment is a UK specific assessment. It's really just to check that you understand UK legislation, UK building regulations, and are ready to practice in a UK sector.
Yep.
So that's the US to the UK process. If you are a UK architect and would like to transmit and license in the US, then I'm going to set out the first steps of the process to take that forward. So as Hugh mentioned, if you're a UK architect, you will need to hold an ARB accredited Part 1 level qualification, an ARB accredited Part 2 level qualification, and an ARB accredited Part 3 accredited qualification. Provided you hold those three qualifications and are actively registered with the ARB, we will then be able to issue an ARB certificate to you that we can then transmit to NCARB.
Right.
And just to explain the steps of how you acquire that ARB certificate, first of all, we would ask that you contact us just to check that your qualifications are in scope. Harry mentioned that there are some elements that aren't currently in scope of the agreement, but provided you do hold the requisite qualifications, the next step for you will be to apply for an NCARB record. To do that, you'll need to provide your ARB registration number and pay an NCARB fee. Once you've set up your record, you will be given an NCARB record number. we would then ask that you transmit that record number back to ARB, and we will use that then to and add that to your ARB certificate, which we will transmit back to NCARB. NCARB will then pick up the process from there.
Yep. Okay. Now, after we get the transmittal from ARB to us, we will issue the NCARB certificate after review to make sure everything is in order, of course, but we will actually then issue the NCARB certificate. Now, as I've mentioned, and those many of you know, again, the license itself is actually issued by our jurisdictions. Therefore, you're not licensed when this happens yet. You must apply to one of the jurisdictions here in the US that is accepting the MRA and under this agreement. So basically what you're going to end up doing is you will request transmittal to the jurisdiction you want to be licensed in. The transmittal requests are actually made from your My NCARB account. So once you have established that NCARB record, you'll have access to your NCARB account. You'll go in there and that's exactly where you'll request that transmittal to the specific jurisdiction. Again, just to reiterate, the jurisdiction must accept the NCARB certificate issued under the rules of the MRA. You pay a transmittal fee. Then you will complete whatever jurisdictional application is required. Some jurisdictions have an application, some don't. But again, you will complete the jurisdiction's application if it is applicable, and you will pay any jurisdiction fees if applicable. Similarly, as the UK has an adaptation assessment, many of our jurisdictions here in the US actually have some sort of an exam, a small exam, or it might have a jurisprudence type of test or something, or even possibly an interview in a couple of states. Again, you will need to complete any jurisdiction-specific requirements. And those are not controlled by NCARB. They are jurisdiction-specific requirements. We know a lot of people, our best example, the clearest example for most is the California supplemental examination. If you were transmitting to California, we use that as an example of a jurisdiction-specific requirement. So those are the steps that will need to be taken. And once you have completed that jurisdiction's requirements, you will be issued a license in that jurisdiction. And that's about it. Hopefully that's really clear to everybody.
That was a lot of information. Thank you. So let's move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And as a reminder, you can submit your questions using the Q&A tool anytime, and we'll do our best to get to it. So let's start. First question, we have a candidate who is from the US. So this person is saying, my primary registration is in a US jurisdiction that is not currently participating in the MRA. But this person holds 2 additional licenses in jurisdictions that are participating. Is this person eligible to pursue licensure through this agreement? So I don't know if Emma, would you like to start with that?
I think if they're licensed in a participatory state, then yes, they can use that and would be eligible under the agreement.
Excellent. And a follow-up, or what happens in the process once you get the license in the UK or the registration in the UK, maybe Rob, you can help us. Will this reciprocity give full licensure or registration to sign drawings in all areas of the United Kingdom?
Okay, first of all, in the UK, we don't regulate the function of architect. We protect the title of architect. So having joined the register, a US architect would be in exactly the same position as anyone who has joined the register through our main UK route. So there is no difference whatsoever.
Excellent. Another question, maybe for Harry. How can a foreign educated applicant who holds an NCARB certificate take advantage of this agreement?
If you are in, so this is how does a foreign educated applicant. So if a foreign educated applicant has gone through the process by which they have been accepted in a jurisdiction that accepts foreign education through the ESA evaluation, they should be eligible because they are licensed through the standard path, technically. So it's foreign educated. I want to make sure I'm getting this right, because again, there are some nuances there, but
at this moment,
they can't. Okay, I'll make sure.
Yes, at this moment, because this agreement
is only NAB accredited.
Yes. We will be working on reviewing the process in the future years, but at this point, it's not an option, unfortunately. So question, I'm trying to take turns, question for ARB. Can you tell us a little bit more about the assessment? What does it involve?
I'll take that if I may, Emma, thank you. So the assessment process, first of all, we're viewing it not as a barrier, but as something which is very supportive. So we'll be providing a resource pack for applicants whereby they can bring themselves up to speed about the essentials for UK practice. So the first part of the assessment will be to submit what Emma has already sort of referred to, which is the career summary. It's effectively an extended CV, thinking in more detail about a small number of projects up to 6 and reflecting on sort of highlights or things that may be notable within those projects. In addition to that, replying to a small number of questions relating to a short scenario that applicants will be given about a particular sort of project with a UK practice matter in it that will need to be discussed. Those 2 items, so the responses to the reflective career summary and, the responses to the scenario-based questions and the reflective career summary, they will go out to our assessors a little before a professional interview will arrange, and the applicant will be invited to come along in Zoom for around an hour to discuss their responses to the questions. And if they discuss those responses satisfactorily, together with any follow-up questions our assessors may have, then the assessors are able to recommend that they've passed the assessment, and then it's just joining the register through the same process as anyone would ordinarily join through the UK route. So an application form and an annual retention fee would then be payable at that point. So that's essentially the headlines. A few more nuances, but we'll supply those as part of the application briefing pack we'll be getting direct to applicants.
I have to ask, because as an architect, whenever I have to write something, I always wonder how long do you estimate the person will have to, how long will it be the answer?
Well, first of all, we're not mandating a minimum number of words, but we're expecting around 500 to 600 words per answer. Certainly no more than 600. We'll be detailing this more carefully in the guidance, and the reflective career summary. Again, we are specifying an upper limit, but not a lower limit. So if someone is able to get their point across to us very concisely, they don't need to use all of the words available, but it'll be around 5,000 words or so.
Okay, not too long. Sounds good. Let's turn to Harry. What type of additional requirements might a jurisdiction have?
So in some of our jurisdictions that I mentioned, we have the California Supplemental Examination, CSE, in California, which is another exam. In other jurisdictions, we may have a jurisprudence exam which is an open book test typically of some number of questions on actual requirements for practice in that jurisdiction. In some jurisdictions, we have questions that have to be a quiz on climate in that specific jurisdiction, etc. So those are just sort of types that they may have. In most cases, they are, I understand them to be open book. And again, mostly it is based on requirements that are specific to that jurisdiction.
And kind of along what happens afterwards, how long do you estimate will the process be? Let me read the exact question. On average, from NCARB to ARB, what would be the typical timeline?
Should I take that?
We were so from NCARB, from transmittal, from the time, if it's a US architect going to the ARB and everything is in order, we'd be transmitting pretty much, it takes maybe 2 or 3 days now, up to 10 days if necessary to actually transmit, but that typically happens in 2 to 3 days at this point, electronically. And from there.
Yes, so once we pick up the application, we will contact the US architect, make arrangements for the adaptation assessment, as I mentioned. We're anticipating that process will probably take about 6 weeks to 2 months in total. Depends on the volume of applications that we receive. So it may take a little longer in some cases, but we will schedule in the assessment as swiftly as we possibly can and move things forward. We think the whole process should take no more than 3 months in total once we're fully operational and up and running.
And that includes the time for the applicant to get you all the information that you're asking
That's
for
what
also,
we're-
right?
Yeah, that's what we're
That
working
includes
towards. Yeah.
applicant's response time also.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is the first time that we will have tried this. We're going to be piloting the assessment to make sure it will all run smoothly. But that's what we would like to achieve.
Right. For Harry, you did mention at the beginning of your slides, you showed us a map of the states, the jurisdictions that accept the MRA as it is today. Is NCARB working on getting more states to accept the certificate obtained through through this MRA?
Yes, we are. There's quite an active group through our council relations team, and they are actually working with the British consulate for those jurisdictions that have indicated they may need to make some changes to their rules that could actually allow this to happen. We're very excited to report that we have the most jurisdictions ever in an MRA so far that actually signed on already, which is 44. And of those, we do know of 4 jurisdictions that actually are not going to be able to, and I don't have them on the tip of my tongue to share with you at the moment. But we do, in fact, our council relations team is working with those 7 other jurisdictions to see what we can work out with everyone. So we're feeling good about it. We're very, very excited about this.
So let's see. We have a person that is ready to apply. So the question is, when can we apply for this option? I just checked NCARB's website and I don't see it as an option in my record yet.
Yes, that will be next Tuesday, April 25th. Lines will be open.
The next question is, does the former title IDP, which is now AXP, count for the experience component to complete the licensure process?
The answer is yes, as long as you qualified under, as long as your NCARB certificate was issued with IDP meeting the experience requirement, that does translate to AXP.
Excellent. And now we have a couple of citizenship questions. So let's see. If you're a UK citizen, not a USA citizen, but are only licensed in the US, do you need to have a valid US visa to apply for a UK license? I'm happy to answer this if you want. So the lawful authorization to work in is required in the country in which you are seeking to be licensed. Basically, you have to be authorized and legal to work in wherever you're trying to get your license. So for instance, in this case, you are a UK citizen trying to get a license in the UK through this process. So you would be okay because being a citizen is certainly a legal way of having a lawful reason to stay. The next question is, I am a US citizen and a lapsed ARB member. What do I need to do?
I can take this one. The MRA does require that anyone we are certifying has an active registration here in the UK. However, one minor kink, if someone has been lapsed for more than 2 years, they would need to demonstrate evidence of continued competence to practice prior to rejoining the register, which will take a little longer than sort of ordinary. If someone has been lapsed for a period of less than 2 years, they would simply need to fill in online application form, pay a reinstatement fee, and it would normally take, I would guess, possibly a couple of weeks at the maximum through the ordinary route. But through the competence-based route, it may take somewhat longer because it has to be reviewed by sort of external experts as part of the process.
And next question, one of my favorites, it's what are the advantages of going through the MRA rather than going through a conventional licensure process path in either country?
So I can start?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So if you're US qualified and looking to currently register in the UK under our existing route, you would need to undertake our prescribed examination process at Part 1 and Part 2 levels. So that would be to gain equivalence to the UK Part 1 and 2 qualifications. you'd additionally need to undertake an ARB accredited Part 3 qualification. So the advantage and the new MRA route, you won't have to go through all of those steps to be eligible for registration in the UK, provided you hold qualifications in scope of the agreement and go through the process that we described earlier, then you will be eligible for registration. So really the benefit of the MRA, it will remove those additional checks and balances that exist if you don't hold qualifications within scope of the MRA. So, yeah.
And here in the US?
So if you're here in the US, so it's
What are the benefits? Why go through the MRA instead of just going through the regular path?
If you're going through the regular path in the UK, again, I think that actually looks back to you all, but you would have to complete Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 of the ARB. Again, those are qualifications through NAB, AXP, and ARE do not translate to Parts 1, 2, and 3. You would still be going back through Part 1, 2, and 3 if you wanted to go to the ARB.
And that somebody coming this way, they wouldn't have to take the exams.
Or document AXP. Yes, you don't have to document AXP or take the exam.
Exactly. Let's see. Does the UK have continuing education requirements? We do some here is based on the states, on the different jurisdictions. Does your board have a continuous education requirements?
At the moment, we have a less structured system, so all architects are required to only undertake work for which they are sort of competent to undertake. We are, however, looking at a sort of larger piece of work for an ongoing competence-based regime, but I will hand over to my colleague Emma for any more information she can shed on that, because I think it's something you know a little more about than I do.
Yeah, so Rob's correct. Yeah, currently you would need to be competent to undertake the work that the project that you're working on, but we will be bringing in a more structured and focused system to monitor continuing professional education in the next 12 to 24 months. So we're currently, we've been consulting on this and how we should handle this, and we'll be opening that system in the near future. So, yeah.
I'll answer one quickly about the authorized to work. What does that mean in the UK? Obviously, for any questions about lawful authorization to work, we do suggest that you check with an immigration lawyer in either country, because we are obviously not able or capable of providing advice in that. But in the US, that would mean, for instance, of course, citizenship, green card, permanent residency, or any type of work visa or any type of visa that would allow to work. What would that be something similar?
Again, the official advice would be to sort of, check with the UK authorities concerning right to work. But I think just in terms of letting people know what they've got to do, it really is their responsibility to sort out their own right to work. ARB isn't able to help with that, but the UK government website does include information on how to apply for visas and to deal with sort of right to work issues.
Right.
But it's kind of very much outside of ARB's competence.
Excellent. We have one more question before we dive into the assessment, because we have a few questions about that. But let's start with, if a Canadian architect who also holds a license in one of the states, the questions moved. So if a Canadian architect who also holds a license in one of the states, are they eligible to go through this agreement to the UK?
I'm going to say that will depend on how you got licensed in that jurisdiction in the United States. If you came through the reciprocity agreement through the NCARB certificate or a reciprocity agreement with Canada, the answer is no. If you were directly registered in that state by completing, again, NAB education, completing AXP and completing the ARE, you would be eligible. Okay. So it falls back to, as we've said a couple of times now, you have to have a NAB accredited professional degree. You have to complete AXP or its predecessor IDP, and you would have had to complete the ARB. And again, the process will be through the NCARB certificate. So you have to have an NCARB certificate issued under those requirements.
So now we'll dive into the assessment. For instance, the first question is the reflected career summary in a narrative format, or can we incorporate graphics and images? We love we love our pictures.
Right, okay, I will take that. We have certainly made reference to asking applicants to incorporate graphics, images, pie charts, even if they want to sort of split down, project information, how it breaks down into sections or types of work. What we don't want it to function as, however, is a portfolio by stealth. So we are advising that they are merely small images as part of the text, just to really help illustrate, extract, and provide more of a flavour of the work that has been undertaken. But we will be providing a template for it, so it should be very straightforward to fill out. It is standard biographical information you'd find in any CV at the beginning of it, and then it goes into a little bit more detail about the projects and how they sort of may sort of interface with the requirements we would be seeking to assess in the UK.
So follow-up or similar is, does an NCARB certificate holder need a project in the UK? Because you mentioned a project. Does it have to be in the UK, or is it their career?
No, absolutely not. The projects, they can be undertaken wholly in the US. They could be undertaken anywhere in the world. It's simply a case of the applicant reflecting on how the issues that may have arisen within that project may need to be addressed were it undertaken within a UK context. So if something, say, went wrong that needed to be triaged during the project, the things you would need to triage would probably be rather different in a UK context, say a US context, and we provide a resource pack enabling applicants to find exactly where that information would be found in the UK. So it's not necessarily about knowing everything, it's about knowing where to find the information in many of the cases.
And that takes me to this next question, which is, I know interviews can be a little bit intimidating. So can you tell us a little bit about the context and what is the person going to go through in the interview?
Yeah, sure, I can take that. So the interview will involve meeting two assessors. There'll additionally be an independent assessor, and this will all be conducted on Zoom. The role of the independent assessor will be to check that the process is followed correctly and quality assured. But it will be the two main assessors who will have read all the background information. They will have read the reflective career summary. They will have read the applicant's prepared responses to the scenario and the associated questions. They will spend some time putting the candidate at ease and sort of welcoming them and explaining the steps of the process that will be gone through during the interview. And then it will be a professional conversation. So they will talk through the applicant's responses to the questions and any other questions that sort of arise from the discussion. And then they will conclude the professional interview by explaining the next steps and when they are likely to hear from us next, as to whether they've been successful or not.
Excellent. I hope that makes it a little bit less intimidating. Next question is, what was or what is AIA's involvement and RIVA's involvement in this process of creating the MRA? Who wants to start?
I guess I can start here on the US side here. We have been making sure that, in fact, our colleagues at the AIA have been well aware of this process and it's been happening all along. We represent the health, safety, welfare of the public in licensure. So again, it's been developed through work with our volunteers. I do like to tell people all the time, we are also AIA. Our volunteers are AIA members. I am. Patricia is. And so there is a voice of the AIA that is part of this throughout the whole process. They've heard what we're doing in not great detail, but they've heard in detail. But the MRA is really a contract between ARB and NCARB. And so we have received a lot of input. And mostly I will say that what we've received is great support. I think that's really key. Every time we've talked about this around anyone, any of our organizations, not just AIA, but the other Architectural Alliance organizations, NOMA, ACSA, NAB, SARA in New York, and others to be ALA, they've all been very excited about this opportunity that we've had and have been fully supportive of the direction that we've gone. So we feel really good about where we've been and having been very inclusive in bringing people in to get ideas suggestions, and we're excited to be here at this point today.
Yeah, and very similarly in the UK, we've been keeping the RIBA up to date with discussions and developments as we've moved through the process. And then once we concluded the signing of the agreement back in February, the RIBA have been incredibly supportive and helpful in terms of promoting the MRA and helping us to spread news about the MRA and how it will operate. So indeed, we've been very kindly hosted by the professional bodies for a number of outreach events, and we'll continue to do that over the coming weeks and months.
And I didn't mean to leave them out either, but yes, the last 2.5 years, we've also been in touch with RIBA USA. So the conversations have been happening with them also here.
Well, we have even more questions about the assessment, so I have a couple for you too. Are there any publications that will assist the US applicant to learn the regulatory requirements in order to adhere to UK requirements and pass that portion of the preliminary preparation?
Yes, part of the package of information that we will be providing to applicants, we will give a list of documents and books or articles, etc., that applicants can refer to and use to prepare for the assessment process.
I think that kind of answers the next question, which is, will there be a guide to what knowledge and professional experience will be required?
Yes, there will. I think one of the key points is some of the issues that we will be seeking to assess would be covered in other qualifications in the UK. So if anyone is already hooked up with a UK practice, is already working with them over here, they may well have books that are used to sort of equip UK students, to pass their final examinations in the UK. I'm not going to name any names. There's a number of resources. They're all sort of commercially available. Ask one of your colleagues or friends for a good recommendation about one of those books.
Okay, and as a reminder, you can use the QA tool to send your questions, and I'll keep going with the next one. We have another applicant that is ready to, or architect that is ready to apply on Tuesday. So what should that person do? Who do I call? Email, form? How does it work? So I don't know where the location is, but I think it's good to ask the question in either direction. What would be the first step for a person who's in the UK trying to get a license here?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, if you're a UK architect looking to secure licensure in the US, then first of all, we would advise you to contact us and make sure you have the right qualifications that are within scope of the agreement. And then the next step after that, provided you do have those qualifications, is to apply for your NCARB record. So yeah, those are the first two steps.
And here, would you be able to say the person going there?
Yes, so if you're a US architect and you're anxious to go there, again, please check our website and make sure you're in a jurisdiction that actually is signatory to it, or is accepted, not even signatory, but is accepted in the MRA, because that does work in both directions. Please make sure you have your NCARB certificate up to date. And if you do, go to your NCARB certificate, go to your NCARB record, actually call NCARB and say that you want to transmit. You cannot locate that currently in your NCARB record that you want to transmit to the ARB, but you would actually go in and you will then let us know that you want to transmit to the ARB, and we will help you get to that process and make it accepted, make it available to you.
So now looking a little bit into the future, will NCARB and ARB consider other types of education to take part in this agreement in the future?
The answer to that is yes. We have already built into the agreement a commitment to look again and review it in 3 years' time. At that point, we should be in a position to consider whether or not we can expand the scope of the agreement to include more routes and qualifications.
Yes, and the same goes for on the US side. I wanted to clarify something I had said, which is Patricia jumped to the chase very quickly. The question earlier, which I know is specific about being foreign educated and being here in the US, what I want to make clear is, and I think where I really think this is important, because we do have a number of individuals here who are licensed, who are foreign educated. If you went through the if you're foreign educated and you came through that path, you had the option of getting an ACE evaluation and obtaining additional education and then you're allowed to sit for the exam and or were granted licensure. Those individuals do not have the equivalent of a NAB accredited degree. It's similar, but those individuals do not have a NAB accredited degree. So that's where I wanted to really designate that if you did come through that path, and I know that many times people have assumed that if they did, they had a NAB accredited degree when they completed their education evaluation services for architects or ESA. It's actually equivalent to the NCARB education standard. They are not the same. So I did want to clarify that for everyone, because we do know a lot of you out there have actually, a lot of our customers out there have actually gone through this process and have gotten licensed, and it's pretty much the standard path. It's just under the MRA right now, it does have to be, as Patricia clarified early on, it has to be a NAB accredited professional degree program.
Hopefully we'll get to take another look.
Yes. Stay tuned on that one.
Rob, all the geography questions are for you. So does this open the door to UK Commonwealth territories?
No, it doesn't. We are limited by legislation, so it is England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And for those that want a little more detail, the Channel Islands, for instance, are not included. And if you know the Isle of Man, that isn't, even though it is sort of kind of midway between ourselves and the Isle of Ireland. So just the 4 nations of the UK.
Okay.
Next question is, do I need a work visa before I apply? So my interpretation of that, and please jump in, is that you need to be legally working, you need to be able to work legally in the location to make sure that the important thing is complying with the federal, state, local laws and regulations. So if that depends on where you're located, it depends, but it's not something that it will stop the licensure process, but yes, of course, the working part of the process. Any differences?
Similarly, in the UK, it's the responsibility of the applicants to basically resolve their own rights to work, but it won't interfere with the registration or assessment processes that we'll be carrying out back at the ARB offices.
Okay.
Where will I be able to find the associated fees for this process?
The details are published on our website already, and we'll be updating the information on the 25th of April when we open to applications. So it'll be all very clear on our UK website, ARB website.
Same here on the NCARB website.
Yes. And with all of our other fees, so almost to the end, where can I find the list of participating US jurisdictions, which is actually important for going either way?
At www.ncarb.org. On the homepage, if you scroll down a little bit more, you're going to see a big map of the US with a lot of NCARB blue on there. It says licensing requirements. Click on that. Click on reciprocal registration up at the top. There's a little bar at the top. There's additional licensure reciprocal registration. Once you click on reciprocal registration, read the bar down the side and get to the part where it says NCARB certification accepted through the US-UK MRA. You click on that button right there. It will light up in NCARB blue the jurisdictions which will accept and or transmit from those jurisdictions.
Just to add to that as well, so our ARB website will include a series of frequently asked questions. We have a specific question just on that topic, and again we will link through to NCARB's page that Harry has just referenced. So that's arb.org.uk.
Yes, and I strongly recommend that as a first step to make sure that wherever you want to go, if you're in the UK or wherever you're coming from, you're eligible for the agreement. And one final question, are NCARB and ARB looking into MRAs with other countries?
So for the UK ARB's part, we are currently working with our Australian and New Zealand equivalents. We actually signed an agreement with them in the middle of March, and we will be opening to applications under that mutual recognition agreement later in May. So yeah, we are working on that. Yeah, very exciting.
And here at NCARB, yes, we are in fact working with some other countries who've expressed interest in working with us. We're excited to find out from other countries. They've been very carefully watching us and the UK and watching the ARB specifically in how we're doing with this. And people have been very excited about our path of looking towards people's levels of competency rather than just accredited education, structured experience, and comprehensive examination. So yes, we are in the middle of talking to countries, and I really can't give you much more information at the moment. Just as a reminder, which again, if you come through any of these, but we do currently have an MRA with Australia, New Zealand also. We have the one which has been in existence the longest with Canada. And then we also have a tri-national mutual recognition agreement with Canada and Mexico. So now we have this one with the UK.
Yeah.
So we are looking to more. Stay tuned on that too. We got a lot going on right now.
We keep busy. So it is unbelievably time to wrap up. So some final thoughts before we close, if you can just share either advice, takeaway, or suggestions, please, for our audience. Rob, I'm starting with you.
Okay, I think top tip from this end of the table would be go to arb.org.uk and using the contact us button. If you have any questions, send away and we'll be happy to reply to those as soon as we get back to you.
Emma?
Yes, well, we've mentioned it a couple of times, but just a reminder that both ARB and NCARB will be opening to applications on Tuesday, the 25th of April.
That's next Tuesday.
It is next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
And for us, again, just reiterating, and I'll plus one to both of you, come to the website for NCARB. We're here to help you get through the process. It is quite transparent. And again, I know there's been a lot of questions about particularly assessment. Our path is a little bit straighter until you might get to our jurisdictions. But again, we're here to help you with the path all the way along. But again, first thing, please make sure that you're eligible to go through this path. Keep in mind that, yes, we are, in fact, again, looking to change it up a little bit in the future and accept multiple pathways through. But for now, it is the NAB, the AXP, AR, so you're saying ARB now. So ARE, and of course, on the UK part, it has parts 1, 2, and 3. There's no way around that at this moment. And with that, just please come to our, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact us either at ncarb.org/contact. And again, our team is waiting here to help you all get through this. And we're excited by it. We could not be more excited about everything we've done together. Patricia, and Emma, and Rob and I have spent 2.5 years working together. And we couldn't be more excited that today has come, or Tuesday's coming.
It's been a great opportunity to be able to sit at the same table, all in one location. So thank you for making all the way here. Thank you for joining us. And if you missed part of this webinar, you can, of course, catch the recording later in our YouTube channel. And if you have questions in the meantime, as our guests have already mentioned, please reach out to NCARB's customer relations team online at ncarb.org/contact or to ARB's team as well at arb.org.uk/contact us. We are so glad that you were able to join us and stay with us. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye.
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 Bye now.